Hello and welcome to your Ageless Musical Brain Podcast, Season 2. I'm your host, Lucelena Blanco, known as Lucy. On this first episode, I have a very special guest today, born from music legend royalty. He lives his father's musical iconic legacy in his euphoric, energetic, and spicy performances. In his performances, he mirrors passion that he has for keeping his father's memory and his impact for Latin American music and Latin jazz, Afro-Cuban beats very much alive. My guest continues to keep fast-paced dance, salsa music, and our Latin culture vibrant and influential, just like his father's legacy. Here to tell us more about the king of Mambo and the king of Latin American music is my very special guest, Tito Puente Jr. Tito, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Lucy, thank you for having me, and I appreciate your time and celebrating the life and legacy of my late father, El Rey del Timbal, Tito Puente.
Yeah, absolutely, and I could see that from your t-shirt. You live it. Yeah, even from what you wear. That is so beautiful. Because in this past weekend, you celebrated your father's legacy of 101 years. It's very symbolic of his birthday. You celebrate and make his spirit live on through the love of his music. That's a very loyal and unique quality that you have.
I appreciate that.
Tell me what happened this weekend. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, big shoes to fill. He passed away 24 years ago this year, and we did celebrate his 101st birthday, born April 20th, 1923. Ernest Anthony Puente Jr., a.k.a. Tito Puente.
Yeah.
And those of you who are listening might not know that my father's name was Ernest Puente, not Tito, as his stage name is. He's known as Tito, and that comes from my grandmother. Celia Ortiz.
Yeah.
And in the Bronx, growing up in New York City, and of course in Spanish Harlem, my father was born on 110th Street, and he lived on the third floor. And back then, there was no social media or cell phones or anything like that. So abuela, as we kindly called her, grandma, would yell out the window, Ernetito, Ernetito.
Yeah.
So my dad got the nickname from his friends, Tito, as something derivative, something small in Spanish. Poquito, chiquito, Ernetito. That's where he got the nickname Tito.
Yeah, and sweet too, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
And the sweetness, yes, absolutely. And I understand that your father showed signs of this talent in the kitchen as a little boy. Tell us the story.
He showed signs of talent at a very early age. My grandmother, Celia, used to take a quarter from my grandfather, and she would send my father to go play piano. That's what the piano lessons were, nothing but a quarter back then.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, 1930s. My father was very, very young at the time, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and he was a child prodigy, but he was a dancer first, Lucy.
Oh, yeah.
He danced, played Mambo music, and won dance contests around the neighborhood in Spanish Harlem, New York, with my aunt. And they used to win all the contests and win, $50 here, $20 there. And he was a very wonderful, wonderful dancer. So Tito Puente was a dancer first and then became a child prodigy of music, piano, percussion. That's what he got himself involved with at a very early age.
Yeah, yeah. And the neighbors, they complained about the banging with the pots and pans. That was funny.
Yes.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. They said, put that kid in school. Put that kid in some, because he was banging up pots and pans all the time, and he was running around. He's a very hyperactive child as far as music. So he would bang on the walls of the actual building that he lived in. They had stairs. There was no elevators back then, and my dad told me that he would be banging on things, and his mother said, let's put him into a training, into learning on how to learn syncopated rhythms, and of course piano. That's one of the greatest percussive instruments out there.
Yeah, wow. And as far back as you can remember, what were those moments like that actually impacted and wowed you? I'm sure there were many, but like as far back as you can remember, that you made the choice, this is the life I'm gonna lead.
Well, being his son, of course, I always recognized the fact that he was a brilliant genius when it came to composition and arranging music. I would see that from my own eyes, being a young child myself in the 70s and the 80s, and seeing how he worked very diligently on the piano and writing and composing music
Yeah.
throughout his entire career from when I was alive. But I can only imagine his upbringing, but it must have been very tumultuous for him, as he was a veteran of the United States World War II and a Navy soldier as well.
Yeah.
And just being young, and my recollection of him of just being working a lot and being somewhat absent in some sort of aspect to it, because he worked on the road.
Yeah.
My father was a performer,
Yeah.
and he worked all the way till his passing in 2000. So being young and not having that father figure there at the time when I was young was really something that I remember the most. And my sister too, as we went through our early childhood years.
Yeah.
As I got older, I started realizing that I wanted to spend more time with him. And my mother did too, because she was always watching us.
Yeah.
And she said, why don't you go on the road and take your father around? So at the ripe old age of 14, 15, 16 years old, during the summertime, I would go and go with my father and set up his drums. And I learned more about him, on his professionalism. And of course, I knew him as Tito Puente, the father. And then I learned more about him as Tito Puente, the professional musician.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about Arts Garage? Tell us about Arts Garage, because I know that's very important for you. And also being a member of Playing for Change, because I know it's very important nowadays with so many younger generations getting depressed. The difference in the lives of younger generations you make. Tell us about that.
Arts Garage is a wonderful venue in Delray Beach, Florida, and I'll be celebrating. I've been doing this for about 7 years now, celebrating my 53rd birthday.
Wow.
Here, performing there on May the 31st and June 1st.
Very
My
nice.
birthday falls on the 2nd, but I'll be celebrating my weekend. And of course, it is the anniversary of my father's passing on May 31st as well,
Yeah.
on the 25th
Good.
year of his passing.
Yeah.
So not only will be celebrating my birthday, but also not a tribute, but more of a celebration of his life as we celebrate at Arts Garage in Delray Beach. It's a wonderful non-for-profit place where they have bringing all types of different styles and genres of music. And Playing for Change is a fundraising effort with many, many musicians, including my favorite Carlos Santana, where we remade Oye Como Va, along with Becky G and many other artists. Playing for a Change is one of those organizations that really brings global awareness to music. And what it does is it makes changes in different parts of the world, especially Africa and poverty-stricken countries. And they donate to local charities. And I'm really, really proud to be a part of that whole Playing for the Change. There's some very major, big artists. Sheila E., my friend, is participating in Playing for a Change as well. And you can go to the playingforachange.org and see more about what the great contributions that they have given to many, many different countries around the world. And music is built for change. Music is built for the mind, the soul. It brings people together. It's very healthy for you. Salsa dancing, mambo dancing. I try to encourage everybody to take a listen to Tito Puente, or when you leave your homes, tell Alexa to play some Tito Puente music. And when you come back home, it won't be one song repeated. And Tito Puente music is very energetic. It's full of life. It's very good for your cardiovascular. I try to tell kids to listen to Tito Puente music. So there are health benefits to listening to Tito Puente music and what my father really left on this planet before his untimely passing. But it's a great, great opportunity for young kids who are listening to this podcast. Take a listen to Tito Puente, Google his name, and learn a little bit more about the history of why they called him the king of Latin music.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also proven on EEG scans. My goodness, neuroscience many years ago, we go back 50 years ago, science didn't pay attention to how beneficial dance music and the arts, especially dance drumming. Oh my gosh, that's even newer, right? In the realm of science. And now it's been proven through these EEG scans of how beneficial drumming is, right? So a lot of people, Tito, I notice that when you say good morning to them, right? Like when I'm in the office and I say good morning, I notice the reaction of some people. Oh, what's so good about it? It's Monday. Not on your calendar. What happens on Mondays, Tito?
I always celebrate Mambo Monday. There's 52 Mondays a year. I know that's the day that everybody's kind of dreading to go back to work. And I always encourage everybody with my social media posts with a Mambo Monday, an inspirational quote or inspiration photo, and show you that Mondays are not as bad as what we always think that they are. I always encourage people to listen to Mambo music and listen to the music of Tito Puente on Monday morning. It will bring you awake. I try to do that in my car when I'm driving my kids to school. They get turned off by it, but I push it in their ears, and they understand now that they'll always remember how Mambo Mondays were represented by Tito Puente and Tito Puente Jr. And take a listen or take a watch to some Puente music every Monday, so that way you can be tuned in, and it really inspires people too. It inspires people to get through their workday with Mambo music.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what it is too? It's that energy that we keep inside, right? I'm a firm believer in connecting to our senses, not allowing the external world to be the ones to guide us into how our lives are going to be, but connect to our inner senses and that energy that we keep inside, especially when we sing, when we dance, when we move. That's what this show promotes, is the momentum. I love momentum. Even at my age, I can tell you, I get very excited when I see people dancing, skydiving, and doing all these things that is meant to be in a lot of older generations of Latin America. In their minds, oh no, that's what is appropriate, only age appropriate for when you're young. And that's not how you and I think. We think differently. We already know that age has a stigma attached to it, age appropriate mentality. What do you say to younger generations who are always on their phone, or a lot of times more on their phone than they are in activities such as these, and also older generations who think they're too old to dance and sing?
I connect, and that's funny that you mentioned that, Lucy, because I connect
Yeah.
a lot because I have teenagers. So I understand their language, and we were teenagers at one time too. So we get it. Our generation, I'm Generation X, so I'm a little bit different. But I understand the new generation now, the new millennials, how they think, and they are very involved in social media, very involved in computers, and of course, streaming platforms and things of that nature. So we have to reconnect with them in those aspects. And how do we get them motivated? Well, we show us old cats, as we call ourselves now. We show us old cats, but I don't really look at it like that, because if you take a look at Jennifer Lopez, she's kicking butt.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had a doctor tell me that, hey, you look very young for your age. I'm going to be 53. I have no white hair like Tito Puente. My father age had a full head of white hair. So I'm doing pretty good. I think drinking a lot of water. We're very health conscious now, what we put in our bodies. We live longer. Men live longer now, especially Hispanic men. We're learning more about heart disease and how to avoid it. And of course, things that are causing cancer, carcinogens, and we're just eating better. We're learning a lot more about movement, and of course, the intake of different foods and grains and salts and things of that nature. We have to monitor them, and I feel like I'm more healthier, and I feel more drive to bring this music and all that I know, my wisdom, to the next generation. Puente, the last name, Tito Puente. Puente means bridge in Spanish. And that's
Yeah, I know.
my
Yeah.
father bridged 5 generations of musicians and people together, starting from the 1940s throughout his whole entire career, throughout the Palladium era, and those great songs like Oye Como Va, and all those great songs that he had throughout the generation after generation, learned about movement, dancing, mambo music, salsa, as we call it today. And I continue to do that. And I'm trying to bridge now the younger generation to the music of Tito Puente. A kid who's 20 years old today never got to see Puente or understand who he was. So it's up to me to bring that knowledge and that wisdom to them, so they can be inspired for the new generation. And I'm hopeful that my son, Tito Puente Jr., the third, can inspire the next wave of Latin percussion players.
Yes, and I'm sure he will. And also throughout the world, right? Now we have salsa radio stations in different countries. In London, we have that. We have salsa dance classes in Switzerland. That was unheard of 50 years ago. 40 years ago, right? So yes, people are getting the idea of how contagious our music is, our culture. And not only that, but it's also for brain health, right? We want to be independent. We want to grow older and be independent, right? Not feel pain here, pain there. No, dance so that you don't feel the pain.
That's right.
Love it. Love it, Tito. Love it. I thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Muchas gracias, Lucy. Thank you very much. Mucho amor. And thank you so much for following me. Follow my social media. Remember Mambo Mondays.
Yes, absolutely. Ciao.
Gracias.